Today is one of my favorite days in real estate, property shopping day. We are going to be touring properties just outside Cuenca, Ecuador with two great clients visiting from Arizona. We're going to be visiting 3 properties in the morning and they're all around 30 minutes drive from Cuenca. Now, today just isn't about finding a house. These clients are making a much bigger decision. Do they want to buy near Cuenca, or do they actually want to go a little bit further south towards Loja? So today is really about getting boots on the ground and seeing what these properties actually feel like in person. One of these properties, the third one, is currently their favorite on paper. They've already said that if the in-person visit matches what they've seen online, then it could be one of these buy in a heartbeat kind of situations. So yeah, the expectations for today are relatively high, which does make it even more fun. A quick note about how today came together. These clients committed early to buying through us at Yapatry, and that actually makes a huge difference. When clients tell me that they're going to use us exclusively, then it really allows us to prioritize their search, which means more time, more digging, and better options as well. And that's especially important here in Ecuador because there is no MLS system. Good properties don't just magically appear. They're found through relationships, experience, and just a lot of behind the scenes work. So what you don't see is the weeks of preparation that goes into today's viewings. We've had multiple video calls, a very extensive desktop property search with a lot of options, a feedback loop with the clients, more refinings, and then ultimately a short list of properties today. We've spent many hours just tracking down suitable properties for these clients today. And we are only showing 3 properties in today's video, but in reality, we're seeing a lot more than that with these clients. I just don't want to be stuck behind the camera for every single property that we're viewing. All right, so the buyer brief. What are these clients really looking for? They're honestly my ideal clients. They're very clear, they're decisive, they know what they want. What they're looking for is a large, modern home. Within 30 minutes drive of Cuenca is ideal. Open plan living, that's important. They do want expansive views, and that's probably one of the most important things here is they want this feeling of openness in general. So the views are really going to add to that. They do want a space for an artist studio. If one doesn't exist, then at least some land that they can potentially build one. They want at least 200 meters of construction and ideally 1,000 meters plus of land. And these clients have also committed to owning a car, which does just open up a lot more options outside of areas with strong public transportation. All right, first stop of the day, we're in San Joaquin, one of the most desirable areas just outside of Cuenca, and this home is inside a small private gated community. This is a substantial property. It sits on around 1,500 square meters of land with nearly 750 square meters of total construction between the main house and the secondary structure out the back. There are 4 bedrooms, generous parking, and a lot of flexibility in how the space can be used. This is the kind of property that really leans into the comfort and lifestyle, multiple living spaces, great indoor-outdoor flow, mature gardens, and just a real sense of privacy whilst being within 15 minutes drive of El Centro. It's priced at $545,000, so this is definitely the highest price home we're seeing today, but it does offer gated security, size, and proximity to Cuenca. Alrighty, Lance. So a little bit of feedback on this first property, please.
I'm Lance. My wife is inside, Sarah. We looked at this home. It's a very, very beautiful home. We loved the community. We love that it's off a main street. The property is really outstanding. The exterior of the home is very beautiful. The interior of the home is very, very beautiful. A lot of really stunning woodwork. For us, it was a little broken. There are a lot of singular steps, areas where it's up 2 stairs or down 2 stairs, and And for us, that didn't work as well as we would have liked. We thought it was really a beautiful home. I think it would be, I would classify it as a classic Ecuadorian style home. I don't know that for sure, but I think that's more what it fits. For us, the size was right, the community was right, the yards were right. Interior was just a little too choppy and too many stairs for us. So beautiful home, but not quite for us.
Property number 2 is a totally different experience. We're in Chicken Tad, and this is all about land and openness. The property sits on just over 12,000 square meters, or roughly 3 acres, with sweeping views in every direction, the valley, mountains, and even towards Cuenca. The house itself is 252 square meters with 5 bedrooms and a very livable layout. It's not necessarily about luxury finishes, it's about space, potential, and the connection to the land. The property comes in at $375,000, making it one of the most affordable options that we're seeing today. All right, so we just finished the third day of viewings actually, but we forgot to get some summaries of the properties that we viewed yesterday with Ashley. And so I've got Lance here and we're just gonna go through that now.
We're gonna talk about House 2 now. House 2 is a beautiful home. It's up at 10,000 feet, so you have to be prepared that you're gonna spend a fair amount of time on a dirt road in order to get to it. So it's very isolated. The views are extraordinary, $1 million views out of that home. Very well constructed, but it is on the side of a hill. So right out the door, it's downhill. Right out the back, it's uphill. And it had great gardens. It had a great footprint. Central heating in the floor, which is a really great thing. It does get a little cooler up there. So really nicely constructed. There's a separate out area that was going to be a garage, turned into more of a workshop. There were several patches of gardens that were maybe 10 meters by 5 meters in 2 or 3 places along the frontage of the property, so lots to grow there. Interestingly, talking with the owners, there was a real sense of community. Even though it was very isolated, they trade part of their land to let cows graze on it so that they can trade for milk, and they do certain services for them and other people do services back. And so they had a network of a dozen people that they were like, here, this person and that person. So even though it was very isolated, it was very communal for how they want to live. For us as a family, we were not as interested in the house simply because it wasn't quite as big as we would have liked. It was sort of elongated. It was a longer house, but not as wide. And so the layout just wasn't perfect, but it was a beautiful home. And the folks that own it, I think, would be great transition partners in introducing you to the community. And it's a nice, quiet community, but it is far away from Cuenca, 45 minutes, I think, roughly. But you have to be hardy enough to want to be at 10,000 feet and hardy enough to want to be at least 45 minutes away from downtown. But overall, beautiful property, just not for us because of the size, and it was a little farther remote than we would have wanted.
And now for the one that's been the favorite on paper. This is a furnished mountain estate in Santa Ana, just over 13 acres of land, and it's priced at $490,000. The home itself is about 400 square meters of construction with 3 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, large parking areas, and incredible privacy. The property was built to very high standards, and it shows open living spaces, great natural light, and views from almost every room. It really leans into this indoor-outdoor lifestyle, which is exactly what these clients have been looking for. This is the kind of place where the landscape really does become part of the home. The third property that we saw, the third property was one that on paper, it sort of ticked all of your boxes, but there can be very big differences once you actually see a place in person than seeing it online. So I am very curious as to what your thoughts are on the third property in Santa Ana.
The house in Santa Ana, wow. Before we came to Ecuador, that was my #1 home. That was the house that I said, Jason, I have to see this house. And we went and saw it, and I feel exactly the same way having seen it as I felt when I saw the pictures. There were good pictures of this house. It's a beautiful home, and it's fairly new and modern. It had a lot of amenities, a beautiful kitchen, just tremendous views out of both the front and back of the house. The downside was there was tremendous views out of the front and back of the house because it is up on top of a hill. And it's on top of a hill with a driveway that is very, very steep. And without a four-wheel drive, you won't get there. And it's a little bit further out of town than we wanted. It's still a house that we're considering because it checked all the boxes. It's a beautiful home, and it's very modern, and it's energy efficient, and it just had a lot of features that we really, really loved. I guess the one thing I would say is in looking at the pictures, and I found a lot of differences in pictures between what I saw online and what I saw in houses. There was a gravel road that led to the garage to the house, and I thought that was a common street, but it wasn't. It was a road that you were several hundred meters in from the road to where the main road to where the house was, and that was all up that very, very steep grade. And it was concrete, so it was, you know, going to be safe when it was rainy, but it was a tough challenge because you're very isolated there. And I think my wife and I are willing to be that isolated, but it wasn't in a community. It was on its own, on the side of a mountain. It was, I think, roughly 13 acres, not all of it usable because it was up on the hill and the terracing down hadn't been completed. But stunning property, really beautiful home, just had to be prepared for getting up and down the hill, and had to be prepared for you're a little further out of town than we really wanted to be, but it is still on our list because it's a very stunning property.
Awesome, Lance. That's super helpful. Thanks for that feedback. And so overall, from those 3 properties that we did tour yesterday, I know that we've toured other properties as well. So I'd just like to get a little bit of feedback from you in terms of where those 3 properties sit in terms of the overall scheme of us viewing properties in Cuenca.
I think all the properties were very interesting in terms of how they fit. One of the houses is still in play. That house is probably in the top 3. The other house that was at 10,000 feet, I told you was already too far away, but overall, the homes that were in this grouping of 3 that we saw were very, very good homes, and I think they didn't all fit me, but they would fit somebody. They were really, really nice homes. So it was a great experience with that particular realtor, and we had a good time, and we still have a lot to think about with at least 2 of the 3.
So to wrap things up, I do want to add just a little bit of important context. This video featured 3 of the properties that we visited, but in reality, we did see quite a few more. I just didn't want to be behind the camera for every single viewing. Out of everything that we saw, property number 3 definitely sits in their top 3 overall, but their current favorite is actually a different home, and it's the only property we visited twice. It's a modern, open plan property that's perfectly set up for entertaining, big living spaces, great flow, and a layout that really matches how they want to live day to day. This is exactly why seeing properties in person matters. Online listings do narrow the search, but walking through the home is what makes that decision real. If you're looking for a quality or luxury property in or around Cuenca, and you want a team that represents you as the buyer and does the heavy lifting behind the scenes, do please get in touch with us. And a very big thank you to Ashley for making these 3 viewings possible and for giving us access to these 3 fantastic properties. Thank you for coming along, and we'll see you in the next video.